Josh's card was declined. His mother, Martha, stood calmly across the room. Vanessa, his wife, froze as she saw the word void stamped across the documents. Martha placed the legal title on the counter and said, "You built your business on my name." She turned to her son. "You didn't just lose the RV, you lost me." And that's when their dream collapsed, on land his mother still legally owned. Wait, before we go any further, I gotta ask, where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments and don't forget to subscribe. They said I'd be more comfortable in the RV, but comfort was never the point. Martha stood on the porch, suitcase in hand, while the December wind cut across her coat sleeves like a blade. Her fingers, red from the cold, curled tighter around the handle. Inside the house, she could see the tree glowing warm in the corner of the living room, its ornaments glittering like a life she used to be part of. Vanessa opened the door, all teeth and cheer. "There you are. We were starting to wonder if you'd changed your mind," she said, stepping aside but not far enough to let Martha in. Martha glanced past her. Josh was holding their daughter, Lily, both laughing as they adjusted the star on top of the tree. The scene looked perfect, magazine perfect, too perfect to be disturbed. Vanessa tilted her head, smile unwavering. "So we were thinking you might be more comfortable in the RV. It's all warmed up, plenty of space for just you, private too. And you won't have to deal with the chaos in here." Martha said nothing. She didn't ask why the guest bedroom she'd helped paint was suddenly unavailable. She didn't question why more comfortable sounded like more out of sight. She just nodded slowly and turned toward the side driveway. The RV sat at the edge of their property like an afterthought, parked crooked near the fence, snow already piling along its tires. Its once bright paint was dull now, windows fogged from the inside like it was holding its breath. She stepped inside. It was colder than she'd expected. The small space reeked faintly of mildew and last summer's forgotten road trip. A single space heater wheezed from the corner, blinking uncertainly. The bed was barely made, sheets thin, pillow lumpy. No bedside table, no welcome basket, no note, just the sterile hum of being put somewhere inconvenient. She sat slowly, her coat still buttoned. Her knees ached from the cold, her shoulders stiff from the unspoken. The walls were quiet, but the voices outside weren't. She heard Vanessa laughing, too loud, too pointed. "I just couldn't have her coughing all over the guests, you know how she gets. Plus, she loves that thing. She practically lived in it when she was obsessed with those travel shows." Josh's voice followed. "She'll be fine. It's just for the weekend. She gets weird around the holidays anyway." "She gets guilty," Vanessa corrected. "Big difference." The laugh that followed was sharp, like glass being swept across a floor. Martha didn't cry. She didn't even blink. She stood, moved slowly to the narrow closet at the back of the RV, and pulled out a worn duffel bag she'd left there during their last family trip. She was looking for an extra blanket, maybe one of the old crossword books. Instead, her hand landed on something heavier, a folder, zip-locked, faded. She sat back on the bed and unzipped it, expecting receipts or old registration papers. What she found instead made her breath still, the title to the RV, issued in her name, still active, never transferred. She ran her fingers across the paper like it was a secret she'd forgotten she had. Not sold, not gifted, not co-signed, hers. She leaned back, the paper resting on her lap like a sleeping dog. Outside, Vanessa's laughter floated through the wind again, plastic and hollow. Martha looked around the RV once more, cold, forgotten, depressing, but not theirs, hers. And suddenly, she didn't mind the cold quite as much. Martha folded the title, slid it into her purse, and whispered to herself, "Comfort wasn't the point. Control is." They said it was temporary, but so was my silence. "Just until Monday," Josh said, shifting uncomfortably in the doorway, like he could feel the frost growing between his words. "Once Vanessa's parents leave, we'll get things sorted." Martha stood on the cold RV step. The door cracked open just enough to hear the forced cheer inside the house. Christmas music, clinking glasses, someone laughing too loud. She could smell the spiced cider waft in from the kitchen. It hit harder than the winter air. She kept her hands tucked into her coat sleeves. "So I stay here until they're gone." Josh offered a helpless shrug. "You know how they are." They flew in early. The house is packed. It's just easier this way. Easier. That word again. She nodded once and closed the door gently in his face. She didn't slam it. That would have been too kind. Back inside, the RV wheezed as the space heater sputtered and dimmed. Martha sat down on the thin mattress again, unzipping her coat slowly. The silence inside wasn't peaceful. It was padded, like the insulation in a wall meant to drown out the sound of someone else's party. She leaned forward, resting her elbows on her knees, and for a moment just stared at her hands. Calloused knuckles, dry skin, wedding ring still on. That band had seen the worst of winters, the weight of her husband's death, the beginning of Josh's business, and the down payment on their house. She hadn't written a check. She'd sold her husband's vintage truck to pay it, quietly, without fanfare. They were young then, broke. Vanessa was pregnant. Martha hadn't wanted them to start their life in fear. They never mentioned it again, not after they got the keys, not after the baby was born, not when the guest room became an office, and then a nursery, and then off limits. The knock came, sharp and sudden. Vanessa's voice followed, "Hey, just a heads up. My parents are here." Martha opened the door to find her daughter-in-law dressed in a red turtleneck, hair slicked back, earrings sparkling like they were trying too hard. Vanessa glanced inside the RV, wrinkling her nose slightly. "Still toasty in there?" "It's fine," Martha replied flatly. Vanessa clapped her hands. "Perfect. Okay, we might swing by with the baby later. Oh, and just so you're not surprised, I introduced you as someone helping us get the RV ready. Just makes things simpler, you know." Martha blinked once. "Simpler? Exactly." "You're amazing." Vanessa flashed a too bright smile and was gone. 2 hours later, Martha heard them. A group gathered in the driveway. Vanessa's parents, a friend or two from Josh's old job. Their voices rose in cheer while Martha sat with a cold mug of tea and a book she wasn't reading. A woman laughed. "Wow, you've got your own little camper. What's that like, roughing it?" More laughter. Vanessa's voice. "She actually loves it, has the whole place to herself." Martha closed the book. She hadn't turned a page. Outside, the group kept talking. She could hear her name being used like a footnote, a convenient accessory to their curated, minimalist, happy family fantasy. She stood, walked to the cupboard, opened her tablet. The Wi-Fi signal was weak but good enough. She logged into her storage unit account, hands steady, jaw tight. 2 clicks later, she was staring at her old inventory list, filing boxes, kitchen items, legal documents, one cedar chest she hadn't opened in years. She tapped the schedule pickup button and typed a date, Tuesday, 10:15 a.m., after the guests leave, after the silence ends. As the screen confirmed her pickup, a thought struck her, cold. She had put the old food truck permits in that cedar chest and the business license. I cooked their childhood meals. Now I wasn't even offered a plate. The porch light flicked on just after sunset, glowing warm through the frostbitten windows of the RV. It cast long shadows across the yard, one for every word Martha had swallowed in the past 3 days. No knock, no invitation. Just the soft crunch of footsteps in the snow and a tinfoil-covered plate placed quietly on the RV steps. The door never opened wide enough to see who dropped it off. By the time she stepped outside, the footsteps were already fading back toward the laughter. She brought the plate in. Lukewarm turkey slices, congealed gravy, overcooked green beans, and set it on the flimsy fold-out table near the window. No garnish, no note, no seat at the table. A paper napkin with a smear of cranberry sauce clung to the edge of the plate like an afterthought. Martha didn't eat right away. She just stared. She remembered a different December, her kitchen smelling of cloves and cinnamon, Josh standing on a stool helping her roll out pie dough, flour dust in his nose, her husband at the sink carving the ham with practiced hands, laughing over some inside joke they'd forgotten to explain. That table had been full then, not of just food, but warmth, togetherness. Now she was outside, like a dog, like a burden that didn't match the holiday decor. Her phone buzzed, breaking the silence. Ellie, next door. "Hey, Martha, everything okay? Saw you go into the RV. You staying there?" Martha stared at the message for a moment, then typed back, "Just gathering the storm." A beat passed, then 3 dots appeared. Ellie replied, "Damn." Let me know if you need help loading the Lightning. Martha smiled. A real one. She stood, pushed the foil tray aside, and walked to the narrow RV counter. Her tablet sat charging in the corner, screen black. She tapped it, pulled up a browser, and typed in one word, wheeled up, Josh and Vanessa's business. The page loaded slow, images of a renovated food truck, sleek branding, their faces beaming as if they'd built it from scratch. She clicked to the About Us section. There it was. Our journey began with a used RV donated to our dream by family. What started as a humble camper became the seed of a rolling restaurant empire. Now we serve 3 counties and cater high-end events from the very rig that fueled our beginning. Her breath slowed. She scrolled down. Under business assets, the RV was listed, not as a gift, not as a memory, as a current asset, valued, insured, depreciated, but claimed. Legally, her name wasn't listed anywhere. Not Martha Kingsley, not investor, not founder, just Vanessa Langford, co-owners. She stared at the screen, her hands still. Then she opened her drawer, pulled out the paper from the closet. The title, still crisp, still in her name. She looked back at the website. They listed it as an asset. They forgot something. She still was the asset. Her eyes narrowed as she clicked download on the business listing PDF. Tomorrow she'd call her lawyer, but tonight she'd remember everything. They built a brand on wheels but forgot who bought the wheels. The folder smelled like old paper and peppermint gum, the kind Martha used to keep in her glove box during long drives. The label, handwritten and faded, Josh LLC Start Docs. She hadn't opened it in years, not since she first slid it into the cedar chest in her storage unit and told herself not to make a fuss. Back then, it had been enough to help, enough to see him try. She didn't need her name on anything, not really. But things had changed. Last night's website printout still lay on the RV table, their company logo stamped in clean, bold letters, Wheeled Up Mobile Catering, and right beneath it, the RV claimed, branded, owned by them, not by her. The folder creaked open. Inside, the original loan agreement she'd drafted with Josh when he was 27, desperate and hopeful. A photocopy of the first check she wrote, $19,000 pulled from her retirement account, a purchase receipt for the RV in her name, a single-page memo from Josh. Thanks for believing in me, Mom. Martha ran her thumb over the ink like it was braille from a different life. She kept flipping, and then she found it. Certificate of Title, V9F42M. Registered owner, Martha C. Kingsley, lien holder, none, no transfer, no sale. Still hers. And behind that, a licensing agreement, half-filled, unsigned by her. A draft from years ago when Josh and Vanessa considered buying her out. She'd never mailed it back. She grabbed her phone and dialed. 3 rings then. Wagner and DIL. This is Ellen. Hi, Martha said. Is Jordan available? It's Martha Kingsley. Give me one moment. Hold music, classical, too calm for what was building in her chest. Then, Martha, Jordan's voice came through, warm and alert. It's been a while. I need clarity, she said. If my name is on the RV title and I never signed a release, can they legally use it as a business asset? Jordan paused. Do you have the title in front of you? Yes. Is it clean? No liens, no co-owner? Just me. He whistled softly. Then no, they can't list it, move it, use it as collateral, or claim it for business operations. Not legally. You own it outright. If they refinanced or claimed it as part of their brand without permission, that's a breach. She blinked. Even if they've been using it publicly for 2 years? Especially if they've been using it publicly for 2 years. She hung up, hands trembling, not from fear but ignition. The truth wasn't just in the paperwork. It was in her silence. She had helped them start their dream, and they'd paved over her to build it higher. She'd loaned money, given them shelter in the early months, bought the RV herself when Josh's credit was shot. Vanessa had suggested they convert it, turn it into a quirky food truck, she'd said. Martha had even sewn the first pair of curtains. Now they called it theirs. Now they served rosemary sliders from the stove she installed and served her leftovers in foil. Martha leaned back in the RV chair, legal documents spread across her lap like armor. Let them decorate the holidays with fairy lights and curated photos. Let them pretend they'd built everything alone. Because what they didn't know, what they never bothered to check, was that the wheels under their business had never left her name. Her phone buzzed again. Jordan's follow-up text blinked on screen. Also, if they've used it for loans, we may need to act fast. Let me check for liens. They packed for a Christmas adventure. I packed reality. Josh stepped out, coffee in hand, ready to hit the road in my RV. Vanessa followed, wrapped in designer fluff, dragging matching suitcases and dreams of coastal selfies. Martha watched from the window, envelope clutched like a fuse. When Josh boarded, she was waiting, calm, ready. "Mom?" he said. She handed him the envelope, revocation of use and possession. Signed, notarized, effective immediately. This Christmas, they lost more than just a trip. They lost access. Josh read it once, then again, slower. You had this notarized?" Vanessa's voice rang from outside. "Babe, we're losing the light. Are we rolling or what?" Josh stepped back outside, blinking into the sunlight. Vanessa, we've got a problem." Vanessa stormed to the RV in her spotless boots, hair flowing in a controlled mess, like she'd styled it for a windswept magazine shoot. "What kind of problem?" she asked sharply, stepping up into the RV. Martha met her eyes with silence first, then words. "This isn't your property, and as of this morning, it's not your access either." Vanessa's laugh was loud and fake. "Excuse me?" Martha walked past her slowly and intentionally and stepped onto the driveway. She held up the keys. "It was never transferred, never co-owned. Your business used it illegally. Your listings misrepresented ownership. That's a problem." Behind them, two neighbors walking dogs slowed their pace. A couple of Josh's friends, guests from the Christmas brunch, stood in the driveway sipping coffee, now frozen in place, watching. The silence that followed was heavy. Vanessa's voice cracked with fury. "You're doing this now, in front of people, after everything we've done for you." "For me?" Martha turned. "You left me in the RV like I was a spare part, fed me foil, used my property, called it a brand." Josh stepped forward, his voice low, desperate. "Can we not do this here?" Martha looked at him, not angry, not even disappointed, just done. "You made this here?" She held up the keys one last time and then dropped them into her pocket. Then she turned, reached into the RV, and locked it, deadbolt and all. Vanessa took a step forward. "Where do you think you're going with it?" Martha smiled, slow and calm. "Somewhere it'll be appreciated." She stepped down from the RV, brushed the road salt from her coat, and walked toward her own car. Vanessa called after her. "You can't just take it. You'll ruin everything. Our bookends, our brand." Martha didn't stop walking. "You should have read the title." As she started the engine of her car, her phone pinged with a new message from Jordan, her lawyer. "You were right to act fast. They filed a lien request last week. You beat them by 4 days. They said I was overreacting, but I'd only just begun." The apology came wrapped in guilt. "Hey, Mom, I just wanted to say I'm sorry for how things went down. I know we should have handled it differently. Can we talk soon? Just maybe don't do anything else until we've figured it out, please." Martha stared at the message, her thumb hovering over the screen. She read it again, then once more. The word sorry hung in the middle like a wilted flower. No root, no intention to bloom. It wasn't remorse, it was fear. Fear that she'd do more. He still thought this was a flare-up, a fit, a mother's bruised pride, not the slow fire of someone reclaiming a lifetime of overlooked ownership. She locked her phone without replying. Later that night, the silence of her friend's cabin pressed warm against the windows like a secret. She'd driven the RV north that morning, through icy back roads lined with bare trees, to the wooded retreat owned by Carla, an old friend from her teaching days, someone who still called her M, and meant it with warmth, not obligation. Now the RV sat parked beneath pine branches that creaked in the wind, the frost glinting along its roof like delicate armor. Inside, it felt different. Not like exile, more like sovereignty. Martha sipped chamomile tea on the RV bench, legs tucked beneath her. She hadn't turned on the radio or the TV, just the hum of the heater, the occasional crackle from outside, and her own thoughts. She opened the small storage drawer beneath the seat, searching for her knitting supplies, anything to keep her hands from shaking, even if she wasn't sure why they were. Instead, she found a photograph, folded, torn at the edge. She unfolded it carefully. It was old, worn, soft with time. Josh, age 10, grinning with a gap in his teeth, his arm around her neck. She was kneeling in the garden, dirt under her nails, laughing at something he'd just said. He'd drawn a mustache on himself with marker. She remembered that day. Her late husband had taken the picture, but the corner of the photo, her face, was ripped deliberately. Martha ran her finger along the torn edge. Her heart didn't drop. It burned. She folded the photo back and slid it into her coat pocket, not out of nostalgia, out of proof. Inside the cabin, Carla poured 2 glasses of red wine and turned down the radio. "He texted again?" she asked. Martha nodded. "Vanessa." She posted a story of someone dragging a suitcase through snow, captioned it, "Some people can't handle boundaries." Carla rolled her eyes. "Classy." "She knows exactly what she's doing," Martha said, painting herself as the saint, me as the unhinged elder with too many opinions and a fragile ego. Carla raised an eyebrow. "You?" Martha smiled. "It's what they need it to be. Easier than facing what they stole." Carla stood, rummaged through an old kitchen drawer, then returned with an envelope, yellowed, unopened. "I found this tucked into one of the boxes from my garage," she said. "Postmarked 5 years ago, addressed to you. Looks like it never made it." Martha took it carefully. Her name was written in Josh's unmistakable print, slightly slanted, all capital letters. She opened it slowly, fingers trembling now, for the first time all week. "Dear Mom, I know I haven't said it, but thank you. For the RV, for the help, for believing in the dream when no one else even understood it. Vanessa thinks we'll do something big with it one day, but I think we already did. Because of you. Love, Josh." Martha stared at the words. The paper was dated 6 months before their rebrand, long before the website had erased her, before Vanessa started calling it theirs. The letter had never been given, never even mentioned, intercepted, buried. She folded the letter, her movement slow and steady. "Guess I wasn't crazy after all," she said, placing it next to the torn photo. Carla tilted her glass. "You were never crazy, just quiet." Martha looked out the RV window toward the icy trees and the path she'd carved out of silence. "No," she whispered, "but I'm done being quiet." Her phone buzzed, this time from Jordan. They applied for a new loan. "You need to see the documents," he said. "Thank you." They said nothing. The paper was soft, the ink slightly smudged, and the signature, "Love, Josh," had the same boyish loop she remembered from his elementary school thank you notes. But this one had never reached her hands. Not until now. Martha read the letter again, her thumb brushing the crease where it had been folded and forgotten, or hidden. Her son had written her a thank you, a real one. Not a text, not a scribbled note, but a heartfelt letter in ink, dated and sealed. A son trying, even briefly, to acknowledge that his dreams had been rooted in her sacrifice. For the RV, for the help, for believing in the dream when no one else even understood it. She bit the inside of her cheek and stared at the paper until the tears blurred the words. Not because it hurt, but because it could have meant something, if it had been allowed to. Carla said nothing, just sat across the small table with her hands wrapped around a chipped coffee mug. The silence between them wasn't empty. It held weight. "They kept this from me," Martha whispered. "She kept this from me." Carla nodded. She knew it would change everything. Martha wiped her eyes on the cuff of her sweater and stood slowly, her body moving with purpose now. She crossed to the RV's kitchenette and pulled out her tablet. She placed the letter on the counter and took a photo, then scanned it with the app Jordan had shown her. Once the file was clear and cropped, she saved it under a new folder titled Evidence Phase 2. Then she emailed it to herself with the subject line, "Thank you, but only from one of you." She added a second email address, Jordan's. No note, no signature, just the letter. Let the timeline speak for itself. A few minutes later, her phone rang. "Jordan," she answered on the first ring. "You saw the letter?" he asked. I did. There was a pause on his end. Carla told me. Thought you'd want to know what they've been trying to do next. Martha's voice didn't tremble now. What is it? They applied for a new loan, large one, through a lender that specializes in mobile asset collateral. The paperwork lists the RV again. But here's the kicker. They used old documents, pre-notarization. It's fraud, technically. Subtle, but fraud. She closed her eyes. Are they trying to flip it into a commercial lease? Exactly. Looks like they're trying to spin the RV as a fixed business location to qualify for expansion funding. I flagged it. Martha opened the small drawer beneath the RV bench, pulled out a printed version of the title, and laid it flat on the table. They're acting like they still own the roof, she said, when they never even thanked the woman who built the floorboards. Jordan exhaled. Want me to move on this now? No, she said. Let them think the loan is moving forward. Let them think the silence is surrender. Playing the long game? I'm just letting them dig. As the call ended, she sat alone again, but she didn't feel alone. She had the letter now, the proof, the intention that Vanessa had buried deliberately, manipulatively, and without shame. Martha wasn't mourning anymore, she was preparing. Her phone lit up again, not with a message this time, but a calendar alert Jordan had just shared. Tuesday, 10 a.m., County Records Office. Title freeze confirmation, plus lien audit review. She stared at it, then smiled for the first time in days. Let's see what else they forgot I owned. They said Martha didn't understand business, but they used her name anyway. At the county records office, Jordan flipped through a loan file. Submitted 2 weeks ago, he said, pointing to her signature. That's a scan, not signed, lifted from an old agreement. They'd used the RV's equity to secure a business loan without her consent. Forgery. Martha didn't cry. She remembered Vanessa's polished condescension. You're great with people, Martha. Finance is just complex. And Josh's careless trust. Don't stress, Mom. We've got it. They made her feel small, but they built it on her name. Martha took a breath, then flipped through the packet Jordan handed her. Printouts of the refinance filing, the asset listing, and the attached business account summary. Can I shut this down? She asked. Today, he said. We have full legal grounds. They violated the terms of asset use and committed signature fraud. I can freeze their business account before lunch. Martha traced the page with her finger, a list of upcoming food truck events, prepaid catering contracts, 2 credit lines tied directly to the RV's valuation. Shutting it down would mean their next few gigs would collapse, their brand would be questioned, customers would back out, vendors would blacklist them. They'd be exposed, publicly. Jordan leaned in. Want me to file the injunction? Martha closed the folder. No, she said softly. Not yet. He blinked. You sure? I don't want them to crash. Not yet. I want them to keep driving full speed right into the wall they built with my name. Back at the cabin, Martha spread the documents across the RV table like a blueprint. Every signature, every stamp, every clause they thought she'd never understand. But she did because she'd been their silent investor, the invisible backbone. Now she'd be their reckoning. She opened her laptop and began uploading each document into a new encrypted folder she named Inheritance Audit. She added tags, misrepresentation, Chiarier asset fraud, share identity, misuse. Then she scheduled a meeting through a virtual law portal with an outside auditor, not Jordan's, someone new, someone Vanessa and Josh didn't know. A paper trail beyond anything they could spin. A wind howled outside, pine branches scraped the roof like fingernails across canvas. Martha reached into the overhead cabinet and pulled out an old photo album. She wasn't looking for memories. She was looking for proof. There, between family trip photos and forgotten birthdays, she found it. A picture of Josh at the bank counter, RV title in his hand, beaming. She had taken it herself back when she thought she was building their future. She scanned it and added it to the evidence folder. Silent doesn't mean stupid, she thought, and kind doesn't mean blind. Her email dinged. Subject line, Final business insurance disclosure. She opened it. The RV wasn't just listed under their brand, it was collateral for 2 loans. If she pulled her name now, the entire foundation would crumble. She closed the laptop gently, then whispered to herself, "Good, let them climb higher. It's a longer fall." They gave me used slippers. I gave them the illusion of control. The slippers were beige, worn, and one had a small tear at the toe. Martha stared at them on Christmas morning, the paper still half wrapped around them, tissue poking out like a half-hearted apology. No card, no ribbon, just a muttered, "We weren't sure of your size," from Vanessa before turning back to stir her mimosa. Martha had smiled then, said, "Thank you," slipped them on, and made a silent promise. They gave her leftovers and afterthoughts. She'd give them perspective. A week passed. On New Year's Eve, just before sunset, Josh and Vanessa were setting up their backyard for what Vanessa called an intimate NY soiree, meaning filtered selfies, string lights, and curated cocktails in monogrammed glasses. Martha arrived with a large square gift box, neatly wrapped in white paper with a charcoal gray ribbon. She wore the same beige slippers they gave her, peeking out beneath a pressed wool coat. Her hair was pinned up. Her gloves were soft leather. She rang the bell, holding the box with both hands like it was something sacred. Josh opened the door, eyebrows raised. "Mom? Happy New Year," she said simply, stepping past him. Vanessa appeared in the hallway, mid-laugh with a friend, her tone turning tight the second she saw Martha. "You came?" "I brought a gift," Martha said, placing the box gently on the kitchen island. "Thought I'd drop it off in person." Vanessa exchanged a look with Josh. "You didn't have to." "I know," Martha said. "Open it." The room was quiet as Vanessa untied the ribbon and peeled back the paper. The lid came off with a faint whoosh. Inside, a neatly organized stack, a printed spreadsheet with every unauthorized use of Martha's name, copies of the refinance documents with Martha's scanned signature highlighted, a photo of the original RV title, a letter from Jordan outlining her legal position, a large check replica at the bottom, labeled in bold red, "Void." Vanessa's hands froze mid-turn. "What is this?" Josh moved to look over her shoulder, his face drained. Martha stood still, voice calm. "Just a few things I've collected. Notes, really, about what I could have done, what I'm legally entitled to do." Vanessa's voice was barely above a whisper. "Are you coming after us?" "No," Martha said. "Not yet." She stepped closer, her voice lower now. "Only for them. You see, you've spent so much time assuming I don't know how to read the fine print, assuming silence means permission. But this," she motioned to the box, "isn't a threat." Josh's throat clicked. "Then what is it?" She smiled. "It's a reminder. Just so you know what I could do." Silence filled the room, thicker than the scent of the citrus diffuser Vanessa had burning on the counter. One of the guests from outside stepped into the kitchen, took one look at the tension, and slowly backed out. Vanessa picked up the void check again. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" Martha asked. "Did you check your business credit score today?" Vanessa blinked. "I didn't freeze your accounts," Martha said, "but I froze access to my contribution to them. You'll find the RV isn't recognized as valid collateral anymore. The insurance companies were notified. Your lender has probably already emailed you." Vanessa turned away, rushing to the living room, phone in hand. Josh remained frozen. Martha looked at him. "You didn't write me a check, Josh. You wrote me a thank you note, then you let her bury it." He opened his mouth to speak, but found no words. "I'm not here to ruin you," she said, placing a hand briefly on the island. "Just to remind you, everything you built sat on ground you didn't own." From the hallway, Vanessa let out a strangled gasp. She turned the corner, eyes wide with panic. "Our vendor account is blocked. My business card just got declined." Martha pulled her gloves back on slowly. "Then maybe you should try the slippers. They were used too." They never imagined the engine of their dream would stall because of me. The beep came once, then again, louder, sharper. Vanessa's smile twitched as she handed the business card to the vendor a second time, laughing tightly. "It's probably just a network issue. Try it again." The man behind the counter, a stern-faced supplier from a high-end local farm, ran the card a third time. The tiny screen read the same two words. "Transaction declined." Josh, standing beside her, stiffened. "We can just Venmo it," Vanessa said quickly. "Right, babe." Josh was already pulling out his phone, but his eyes flicked to her, quiet panic beginning to form behind the calm. They'd come to this meeting to secure ingredients for their next 3 events, including a private wedding that could have elevated their brand. Now, they were watching the cracks in the engine before they even started cooking. I don't understand, she muttered under her breath. I checked the account balance this morning. Call the bank, Josh whispered, jaw tight. She already was, walking toward the exit with the phone pressed to her ear, her heels clacking across the polished floor like a countdown. That same afternoon, 2 emails came through. RV title, ownership contested, verification required. Pending cancellation, mobile unit business insurance. Within an hour, 3 clients had withdrawn their bookings. No truck, no license, no asset, no contract. By sundown, their brand was in question, and their reputation built on brunch, sliders, and boho charm was beginning to rot beneath them. Josh showed up at the cabin unannounced. He didn't knock. He stood outside while Martha finished her tea inside the RV, the warm mug cradled in her hands. The silence between them was longer than the drive he'd taken to get there. When she finally opened the door, he looked like he hadn't slept. You made your point, he said quietly. She stepped aside. I doubt that. He came in, looked around the RV like it was a stranger now. Not a logo, not a prop, just walls, a heater, a place. I didn't know what she did, he said, lowering himself onto the bench seat. The refinancing, the signatures, I swear. You knew enough to let her speak for both of you, Martha replied. To let me sit outside while you served your in-laws creme brulee. He flinched. I didn't think it was that bad. No, she said, reaching into a folder on the table. You didn't think at all. She handed him a document, yellowed, original ink, dated, the contract, the very first one she'd drawn up when she loaned him the money to start. He stared at it, read it twice. You kept this? You think I wouldn't? Josh looked up. So what now? You sue us? No, she said, her voice low and precise. I'm letting it go. He blinked. What? I'm donating the RV, she said, to a women's shelter program. They're converting vehicles into mobile housing for displaced women, somewhere it can actually serve someone who didn't use it to erase the people who helped them rise. Josh stared at her, stunned. You're giving it away? She nodded. You didn't just lose the RV, Josh. She reached for her tea and took a slow sip. You lost me. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the bare trees as if in agreement. Josh stood slowly, looking around the RV one last time. The stove where she used to make his favorite grilled cheese, the window he'd crawled through once as a boy, sneaking out to avoid piano lessons. You really won't take anything back? I already took everything I needed, she said. My name. He walked to the door and paused. I was going to write another letter, he said. Martha looked at him. Then, make sure you send it this time. That evening, in the quiet of the RV, Martha logged into the shelter's donation portal and uploaded the scanned title. A message popped up on the screen. Thank you for helping us turn vehicles into safe spaces. She clicked submit and never looked back. They used it for profit, I used it for purpose. The woman at the nonprofit's office had warm eyes and calloused hands. She looked like someone who had heard 1,000 stories and remembered everyone. Martha handed her the title with steady fingers. No tears, no tremble, just a clean, deliberate release. Are you sure you want to do this? The woman asked gently, glancing at the form. It's a valuable vehicle. We usually get older donations, less functional. It's not just a vehicle, Martha said. It's a second chance. Might as well go to someone who knows what to do with one. The woman smiled softly. You're going to help change a life. Martha shook her head. Not change. Restore. 2 days later, the story ran in the local paper. Former food truck donated for Women's Shelter Initiative. The headline was small, tucked beneath a photo of the RV, now painted with soft colors and lined with cots and shelves of toiletries. It looked warmer now, lived in, human. Martha's name wasn't the focus, but it was there. a retired teacher and early investor in her son's food business, who quietly redirected the vehicle after a dispute over legal ownership. The article quoted her only once. Some things are meant to feed people, others are meant to shelter them. I'm proud this RV gets to do both. By noon, it had made local rounds. A few TV stations picked it up. Online chatter followed. But the real noise came from Vanessa on her social media. Vanessa posted a filtered photo of her and Josh standing outside their now parked food trailer, looking solemn. Family betrayal hurts the deepest, but we rise anyway. Some people need the spotlight. We just want peace. In the comments, she hinted that Martha had gone behind their backs, that the RV had been a mutual brand vehicle, and that she had donated it to embarrass them. But no matter how many words Vanessa poured online, she couldn't scrub the fact that the title had never been hers. And this time, Martha didn't respond. She didn't defend. She didn't clarify. She packed. Her hands moved quietly through drawers and closets, folding memories into boxes, not for storage, but for letting go. Old recipes, framed photos, knitted blankets, a lifetime that had carried too much weight in silence. Each item she chose to take was deliberate, each one she left behind equally so. She pulled out a box labeled Land Maps, Original Deeds. She hadn't looked at it in years. She opened it to file away the last of the RV papers. That's when she saw it. A zoning overlay map. The house where Josh and Vanessa lived. The business lot Martha had purchased years ago, under her name, back when she thought her son might build something from scratch, not on top of someone else. The lot lines were clear, and one corner of their newly paved driveway, it was built right into her business parcel, a slip of concrete over the wrong line, a boundary they never thought to question. She unfolded the full zoning plan. It was detailed, marked with dimensions. There it was, in plain black lines, the legal edge of her property, slicing through their backyard. A mistake, maybe, but not hers. That night, her email pinged, zoning office notice, unpermitted structural extension across private lot, subject, parcel violation, potential fine or commercial lease fee. Discussion pending. Martha leaned back in her chair, eyes steady on the screen, then whispered, "Looks like I still own the ground they walk on." They expanded their driveway onto Martha's land. At the zoning office, tucked behind the city library, Martha met with Edgar, a tired man with bifocals and a sharp eye for maps. He reviewed her survey and frowned. 14 feet into your parcel, he muttered. Concrete apron. No permit. She shook her head. Not from me. You can make them remove it, he said, or charge them rent. Martha smiled. I'll be their landlord. Edgar nodded. Understood. Later that afternoon, Martha walked the edge of the parcel line herself. Snow still clung to the grass, outlining the fresh pour of Josh and Vanessa's driveway expansion, decorative bricks, a little hedge border, and a solar light staked into soil that legally wasn't theirs. She stared down at the hedge, trimmed, perfect, clean. She reached into her bag, pulled out a tape measure, and checked the edge for herself. Exactly 14 feet. She snapped a photo, not for proof, for the invoice. That evening, back in the RV, she opened her laptop and pulled up the business license for her old LLC, still active, still holding the land title. She drafted a lease agreement, one page, formal, to J&V Langford, residential occupants, from MCK Holdings, LLC. Subject, unpermitted use of parcel lot 7B, monthly lease terms. Monthly rental fee, $150, due date, first of each month payment. Method, certified check or wire transfer. Late fee, $150 after 5 days. She added a note at the bottom, just 3 words. Respect is rented. She signed it, attached the zoning photo, attached the parcel map. Then she scheduled it for official delivery through a courier. The next morning, Josh opened the envelope in their kitchen while Vanessa hovered over his shoulder in a silk robe with a turmeric mask half dried on her face. What the hell is this? He muttered. Vanessa grabbed it from him, eyes scanning the lines. She's charging us for our driveway? Josh exhaled hard. No, she's charging us to use her land. She can't do that, Vanessa snapped. She can, Josh said, sinking into a chair. She owns the parcel. Vanessa threw the paper onto the counter. She's weaponizing the past, all because of that stupid RV. Josh didn't answer because he knew this wasn't about the RV anymore. It was about the soil beneath their house, and Martha had just reminded them whose name was written underneath it. 2 days later, an official envelope arrived in their mailbox marked from MCK Holdings, LLC. Inside, invoice number 1001. Amount due, 1,250 $, lat fee. Warning, payment link with subject line, lease agreement enforced as of January 1st. Failure to pay will result in legal escalation. Vanessa tore it in half. Josh stared at the pieces, neither said a word. Martha, miles away, filed invoice the 1002 ready for next month. They wanted me outside. Now I own the space beneath them. The courtroom didn't smell like justice. It smelled like printer toner, stress sweat, and overworn carpet. But as Martha sat behind her attorney at the front table, she felt none of the nerves she might have expected. Her hands were steady, her shoulders relaxed. She didn't even glance at Josh and Vanessa as they entered, whispering heatedly behind her. They still thought they had a chance. That was almost sweet. The judge, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and sharper patience, looked over the stack of paperwork in front of her, then lifted one sheet. This map shows that the property identified as Lot 7B is held by MCK Holdings, LLC. That's you, Mrs. Kingsley. Martha stood, her voice clear. Yes, Your Honor. The judge nodded. And the business currently branded as Wheeled Up Mobile Catering has, for the past 2 years, operated illegally, as we now see, partially on that parcel. Vanessa across the aisle couldn't help herself. We didn't know. The judge cut her off. Ma'am, you submitted building permits with signatures. You knew where your structure ended. You expanded your park-in, added planters, even listed the parcel's square footage on your loan documents. Josh avoided eye contact. Martha sat again. Her attorney slid a quiet folder toward the judge. Included are the original parcel deeds, lease attempts, and the certified invoice issued to the defendants. They refuse to pay rent on land they do not own. And the mobile kitchen, the judge asked, was illegally listed as collateral on 2 loans, both of which were recently defaulted due to the asset's retraction and legal challenge. The judge exhaled. A mess, but a clear one. In the end, it took less than 10 minutes. Martha was awarded back fees for unauthorized land use. Her LLC was affirmed as the sole owner of the disputed parcel. Josh and Vanessa's business, what was left of it, was given 30 days to either vacate the space or renegotiate under her terms. It wasn't just a legal win. It was reclamation. Outside the courthouse, the sun felt warmer than it should have in January. Martha didn't stop to celebrate. She walked slowly to her car, people filing past her, some curious, others indifferent. Josh followed a few steps behind. He didn't call out. He didn't argue. But when she opened her door, he finally spoke. We never meant for it to get this far. She turned, her hand on the frame. That's the thing about entitlement, Josh. It always walks too far before it thinks to look down. You really just want to control everything? No, she said. I just wanted to be remembered. You built everything on my land, my money, and my silence. The least you could have done was ask. The next morning, a small envelope arrived in her P.O. box. No return address. The handwriting was messy, childlike, but deliberate. Inside was a folded card with a watercolor sunflower on the front. Dear Ms. Kingsley, they told me this place used to be a food truck. I don't care about that. I care that it's warm, that it locks, that it's mine tonight. You gave us shelter. You gave me peace. Thank you, Ariel, 22. Martha read it once, then again, then folded it carefully and placed it in her leather-bound notebook beneath the original title copy. One relic replaced by another, more worthy, more true. That night, as Martha settled into her chair by the fire, her phone buzzed with a new voicemail alert. Vanessa's voice, clipped and shaken. You've made your point, but we're not done. Martha didn't listen to the rest. She deleted it, then smiled. Because they were. Last year, Martha was locked out. This year, she gave keys away. The cabin smelled of rosemary and garlic. Laughter bounced off the walls. No chandeliers, no fine china, just warmth, cider and scuffed mugs, mismatched plates, and people who belonged. Martha, in a burgundy cardigan, carved ham. Tasha laid napkins. Ariel hung snowflakes without being asked. I can't believe I'm using linen napkins, Denise laughed. My ex said those were for snobs. Ariel added, mine said I didn't sit like a lady. Martha handed her cornbread. You're sitting just fine now. No judgment, no hierarchy. Just women taking up space again, together. Outside, the snow had begun to fall again, gentle, steady. Through the frost-touched window, Martha noticed a black SUV slowly passing the house. It was familiar. The slight scrape on the rear bumper, the dented front left rim. Josh, he didn't stop. He didn't even slow down. Just a brief glance, then gone. Martha said nothing, just returned her focus to the room. She stirred the gravy. Someone asked about the recipe. She smiled and gave it. Not all inheritance comes in money. Some of it comes in meals remembered. After lunch, they gathered near the fireplace with pie on their laps and tea warming their hands. I never thought I'd feel full and safe at the same time, one woman whispered. That's a holiday miracle. They weren't guests, not really, not anymore. They were co-survivors, co-healers. Martha poured another cup of tea, her hand steady. No one asked about her story, but they didn't have to. It echoed in the way she looked people in the eye when they spoke, in the way she listened fully. She had been on the outside once, too. Now she owned the door. Ariel, curled on the arm of the couch, glanced up between sips of cocoa. Do you ever regret not taking more from them? The question hung in the air. Martha leaned back in her chair, the fire cracked beside her. She looked toward the window again, snow thickening now, burying the tire marks from the SUV. I thought I might, she said after a long pause. She looked around the room, at Denise, at Ariel, at the tree someone had decorated with dollar store ornaments and hand-folded cranes. Then she smiled. But I took what mattered. The room fell quiet again as Martha stood and walked to a small box near the door. Inside, 6 envelopes, each one labeled with a name, each containing a key. She handed the first one to Ariel. This is for the RV, she said. It's parked at the shelter. They said you could manage it. Ariel blinked wide-eyed. You're giving it to me? Martha nodded. You're not the first to be underestimated, but you won't be the last to rise. They gave me a parking spot. I gave them a lesson in ownership. Martha stood at the edge of her small back porch, one hand wrapped around a chipped mug of black coffee, steam curling toward the winter sky. The cold bit at her knuckles, but she didn't flinch. She liked the sharpness of it, how it reminded her she was still here, still standing. Beneath the porch light, snow dusted the steps like powdered sugar. She watched the wind tease the trees, the stillness broken only by the crunch of a squirrel darting across the yard. Her thoughts drifted to Henry. If he'd been alive, he would have laughed at the absurdity of it all. His quiet, pragmatic wife taking her son and daughter-in-law to court, turning an RV into a shelter, building a holding company from a folding table and an old laptop. Or maybe he wouldn't have laughed at all. Maybe he would have looked at her the way he always had when things got hard, his weathered hands on hers, and said, "About time, Em." She missed him most in moments like this, not during the chaos, but the quiet after. The heater hummed, soft and steady. Martha opened the old oak desk and found the envelope. To Mom, written in Josh's familiar hand. Inside, one short note. I know I can't undo what we did. I see it now. You asked for nothing, and we gave you less. I'm sorry. Josh. She stood in the quiet, the letter warm in her hands. No tears, no smile, just stillness. She folded it, placed it behind the property deeds, and whispered, maybe later. Later that night, the glow of the TV flickered against the walls, casting soft shadows across her living room. A human interest segment played on the local news. Martha hadn't planned to watch, but Carla had texted, "Turn on Channel 9, you'll want to see this." The camera panned across the refurbished RV, fresh paint, new solar panels, flower boxes nailed beneath the side windows. Inside, bunk beds, clean linens, and a small kitchenette that gleamed like hope. The reporter spoke over the footage. Once a family's business centerpiece, this vehicle has been transformed into a safe haven for displaced women across the county, thanks to a quiet act of generosity by a retired teacher whose name isn't on the plaque, but whose story is written into every corner of this project. Ariel appeared on screen, her smile shy but unshaken. She didn't just give us a roof, she gave us back a beginning. Martha leaned back on the couch, her tea cooling in her hands. She didn't need her name on the plaque. She already had her title. Her phone buzzed beside her. A news alert this time. Another article linking her story to a growing movement. Elders reclaiming assets, rebuilding boundaries, reshaping legacies, not through revenge, but redirection. She read the headline, then powered off the phone. Outside, the snow kept falling, not harshly, gently, like a rewrite. They put me in a box. I drove it into legacy.